Remember the sound of a spoon tapping a bowl late at night when the house felt safe. Bread sat on the table. Oil shined on top. Fruit waited in a cracked dish. These were not fancy health foods. They were survival foods. And today, researchers keep finding that many of them help the body block the lines tumors try to grow. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. One old pantry item even targets the blood supply tumors depend on. Olive oil wisdom. Let's start where so many old meals started, with olive oil, because it turns simple food into something you want again, and it also changes what rides along in your bloodstream after dinner, which matters when cells misbehave and when your body tries to keep growth signals quiet. A tumor can sit tiny for years, but once it builds new blood vessels, it can grow faster, because blood brings oxygen and fuel, so researchers watch that vessel growth, call it angiogenesis, and look for gentle ways to slow it without hurting the healing your body needs. Extra virgin olive oil keeps more of the olive's natural bite, and that bite comes from plant chemicals that can calm inflammation, which is the low, steady fire that pushes many diseases, including cancer, in the wrong direction over time, especially when stress and sleep keep the fire fed. In large diet studies, people who eat in a Mediterranean style often show lower cancer risk, and olive oil sits at the center of that pattern, not as a pill, but as the thing that makes vegetables and beans taste worth eating day after day when life busy. It also replaces the cheap oils used in many packaged foods, and those foods often come with extra salt and sugar that keep your insulin high, which can feed cravings, which can feed weight gain, and that whole chain can raise risk for several cancers as years pass. So use olive oil like people once did as a daily helper, and let it pull you toward real meals, because when you steady your plate, you steady your body's defenses, and that sets up the sharp little clove that comes next, and it wakes up room. Garlic that bites. And speaking of smells, garlic walks into a meal like a loud friend, and it does something similar inside you, because the moment you crush it, it forms new compounds that researchers study for how they affect cell stress and inflammation, and signals matter when cells turn wild. Here's a simple kitchen trick that also fits the science. Crush or chop garlic. Then let it sit for a few minutes, because that waiting time boosts the amount of the sharp compounds before heat softens the bite. You don't need a lot, just a clove most days. In lab work, garlic compounds can slow the growth of certain cancer cells and can even nudge down signals linked to new blood vessel growth. But lab work is not the same as a human trial, so we stay realistic. Think of it as support, not a cure. Garlic also makes healthy food easier to love, and that matters more than people admit, because the best diet never works if it feels like punishment. So a garlicky pan of greens often beats a perfect plan. You quit after 1 week when the fridge looks sad again. Some people worry about garlic and heartburn, and that's fair, so start small and cook it gently, because burnt garlic tastes harsh and can upset your stomach, while slow-cooked garlic turns sweet and still brings those helpful plant bits. You can mash it into beans like a spread. Once garlic becomes normal in your kitchen, another old staple starts to shine too, because it loves the same pot and the same spoon, and it fills you up in a way that helps you skip processed snacks that do no favors for gut, weight, and cravings. Barley bread power. That filling feeling leads us right to barley, the grain that kept bellies calm in hard times. And modern research keeps pointing at one simple idea: fiber changes the gut, and the gut shapes more of your health than you were told, including how your immune system watches. When you eat barley, the fiber reaches your colon, where friendly bacteria break it down and make small compounds that help the gut lining stay strong. And a strong gut lining means fewer irritants leak into the blood to spark chronic inflammation, which can push growth signals upward. Barley also slows how fast sugar hits your blood after a meal, and that matters because high insulin can act like a loud "grow" message. So steady meals may help lower the chance that damaged our cells get the perfect fuel mix to expand in years you can see. If you grew up with soup pots, you already know how to use it, because barley turns broth into a meal and it welcomes garlic, onions, and greens. So the healthy choice does not feel like a separate menu you must force on days when energy runs low. Some people fear carbs, but barley is not white bread, and the difference shows in your body, because whole grains come with the fiber and minerals that slow digestion, while refined grains rush through and leave you hungry again. So choose it often and replace empty stuff today. With barley in the pot, you get the kind of steady warmth that makes you less snack, and that opens the door for lentils, another old staple, which bring their own mix of fiber and protein that helps your body keep repair work running while you sleep night. Lentils of comfort. And if barley is the calm base, this, lentils are the comfort layer because they sit heavy in the bowl in the best way, and they help you feel satisfied without leaning on processed meat or sugary snacks that raise inflammation and risk over time without noticing the drift. Cancer is not one switch that flips, and your body spends every day finding and removing strange cells. So the goal is to keep your defenses strong, and lentils help by feeding the gut and by giving steady fuel for immune cells, not quick sugar spikes that crash. They also come with plant chemicals that researchers keep studying. But the biggest win stays simple. When you build meals around beans and lentils, you naturally eat fewer ultra-processed foods, and those foods link with weight gain and higher cancer risk because they pack calories fast with fiber. If you want lentils to feel like old-time food, not diet food, cook them with onions, garlic, and a spoon of olive oil. Then add tomatoes or greens near the end because the smell alone makes your brain relax before you take a bite and helps digestion too. Many people also forget how well lentils store, and that matters for habits because a ready container in the fridge makes it easy to eat well on tired days, and tired days often lead to drive-through meals that add salt, sugar, and regret right after and next morning. Once lentils become your easy meal, fish becomes your easy protein, and that matters because fish brings fats that calm inflammation, and it replaces processed meats that researchers tie to higher colon cancer risk, which is one of the clearest diet links we have and starts at dinner. Fish by shore. And then there's fish, the shoreline food that feels plain until you remember how often it showed up in old stories, and the reason it matters today sits in the kind of fat it carries. Because some fats cool inflammation instead of stoking it daily in your body. Inflammation is not always bad because you need it to heal a cut, but when it stays high for years, it can push growth signals and weaken immune balance, and omega-3 fats from fish can shift that signal pattern toward calmer messages so cells get fewer go signs. Researchers also watch fish because it often replaces meats that come processed, cured, or smoked, and those meats show a strong link with colorectal cancer risk, so swapping them out may matter more than any fancy supplement you see online. Aim for meals you repeat, not perfect dinners. If you worry about mercury, stick with smaller fish more often like sardines, trout, and salmon, and make the big fish an occasional treat because the smaller fish usually carry less mercury and still bring the same helpful fats. Cook them with olive oil, and kitchen feels alive. Fish also pairs well with bitter greens, and those greens matter because they belong to the mustard family, which researchers study for compounds that can help the body handle toxins. So a plate of fish and greens becomes more than just protein, it becomes a pattern body recognizes. And once your dinners start to look like that, fruit stops being a sugar trap and becomes a tool, so we go next to grapes because their skins hold plant chemicals that scientists test for how they may nudge down the blood vessel signals tumors love when they spread. Grapes from vines. Grapes carry a kind of sweetness that feels festive, but the real story hides in the skin because that thin purple coat holds polyphenols, which is a fancy word for plant helpers that protect the plant and may also help protect you when body faces stress and age. In Lab E studies, certain grape compounds can affect signals linked to new blood vessel growth, and that matters because tumors try to call in vessels the way a town calls in roads. But real life is messy, so we treat this as support, not certainty for every person. If you want grapes to work for you, eat them slow because it's easy to snack them like candy, and that defeats the point. So build a small bowl and pair it with nuts or cheese to make the sweetness land softer and keep blood sugar steadier afternoon. People often ask about wine since grapes show up that way in old stories, but alcohol raises cancer risk, so the safer move is grapes themselves, or even raisins in small amounts, because you get the plant chemicals without the alcohol load and you avoid alcohol's sleep hit. That grape story sets up pomegranate, another old fruit that feels special, because pomegranate brings different polyphenols that your gut bugs can break down into smaller pieces, and those pieces show up in research on inflammation and cell defense, so the fruit becomes a message your gut sends. And here's the best part for real life. When you pick fruits like grapes and pomegranate, you replace the packaged sweets that spike sugar and stir cravings, which makes the rest of these foods easier to keep, even when the week gets rough and willpower feels less alone. Pomegranate ruby seeds. So let's open the pomegranate because the first surprise is how much work your gut does with it, since many pomegranate compounds change after your gut bacteria chew them up. And that after form may be the one that matters most, so food feels personal in your body. In lab tests, pomegranate extracts can reduce inflammation signals and can slow certain cancer cells, and some small human studies looked looked at cancer markers too, but results vary. So we don't treat juice like medicine. We treat it like a smart habit that supports your body's own defenses. The easiest way to eat it is not a giant bottle of sweet juice, but a small handful of seeds on yogurt or oats, because that gives you fiber along with the tart taste, and fiber helps your gut bacteria stay balanced so immune signals stay steadier day. Pomegranate also trains your taste buds toward tart, and that sounds small, but it matters, because once your tongue learns to like tart fruit, the candy aisle loses some power, and that change helps you keep weight and blood sugar steadier, which lowers strain on body's repair crews. If you ever feel overwhelmed by health advice, remember that pomegranate is a added-in food, not a strict rule, so you can rotate it with grapes or figs, and you still get variety, which helps because plants each bring different helpers to meals week after week. And speaking of figs, they carry a softer sweetness and they come with their own fibers and plant bits, so they make a great trade when you want dessert, because they can satisfy you without the crash that keeps some people snacking all night, and that protects sleep. Fig tree sweet. Figs feel like an old memory because you can eat them slow, and that slow pace matters, since the body handles sweetness better when you don't rush it, and figs bring fiber that turns a sweet bite into something steadier. So feel satisfied, not hunted by cravings later. Researchers have tested parts of the fig plant in lab settings, and they have seen effects on cancer cells in a dish. But a dish is not a human, so the real win stays the way figs help you replace pastries and candy with whole fruit most days. Fresh figs work great when you can find them, but dried figs work too. And here's the key: dried fruit packs more sugar per bite, so keep the serving small and pair it with nuts, plain yogurt, or cheese to slow digestion and keep appetite calm through afternoon. Figs also fit the old pattern of sweet after supper, and that pattern can protect you because when you plan a small sweet, you stop chasing sweets all evening, and that helps blood sugar, which helps sleep, which helps repair the quiet work your body does at night. Once figs feel normal, dates often show up because they taste like candy from nature, and they can help you quit packaged sweets, but they need a boundary, since too many dates can push your sugar high even though they look harmless. So handle dates the smart way. And if you keep that swap mindset, you'll notice a funny thing. The more whole foods you add, the less room you have for the foods that feed inflammation. And that's the real starving most people can actually do in daily life without fear, drama, or skipping meals. Dates, not dessert. Dates come from a world of travel and heat, so it makes sense they became a portable sweet. But today, we need to use them with care because natural sugar still counts, and too much can keep insulin high and cravings loud can raise risk over time. The smart way to eat dates is to swap, not stack. So you eat 1 or 2 dates instead of cookies, not after cookies, and you pair them with nuts because fat and fiber slow how fast sugar enters the blood and feel full sooner, so habits stick. Dates also work chopped into oatmeal, barley, or lentil salad because spreading the sweetness across a whole meal keeps it gentle. And when your taste buds get used to gentle sweet, you stop needing the loud sweet that comes in packages with colors, cartoons, and low-fat lies. Some early lab studies look at date extracts and cancer cells, and they find interesting effects. But again, that does not mean dates treat cancer, so we keep our feet on the ground and use dates as a better dessert, not a cure that helps you stay steady. Once you tame the sweet side of your diet, you can taste the bitter foods again. And those bitter foods often bring the strongest plant defenses. So we go now to mustard greens and mustard seed because they hold compounds researchers link to detox and repair inside you. And before we get there, remember this: the goal is not to fear food, but to build a daily pattern that keeps inflammation lower, keeps blood sugar steadier, and keeps your immune system alert, so any bad cells have fewer chances to settle in and build supply line. Mustard greens. Kick. Mustard shows up in old stories as the tiny seed that grows big, and that picture fits the science because mustard greens belong to the same family as broccoli and cabbage, and this family stores special compounds that wake up when you chop and chew for its own defense. Researchers study these greens because those compounds can turn into active bits that help the body manage certain toxins, and they may also nudge down inflammation signals that push vessel growth. But cooking matters, so a quick sauté often beats long boiling that washes out and bores you. If raw greens upset your stomach, don't force them, because you can still get the benefit from cooked greens, and you can start with a small handful, then build up, since the goal is a habit you keep, not a dare you lose when life gets loud again. Mustard also teaches a deeper lesson. Bitter foods often protect us even when we don't crave them at first, so mixing greens into soups, eggs, or beans can help because you soften soften the bite while keeping the plant helpers that make the difference, and you keep doing it. Now here's the payoff that ties the whole list together. These foods don't chase cancer like a drug, but they can shape the body's terrain, so fewer damaged cells find the blood supply, the sugar rush, and the constant irritation they need to thrive as you age quietly. So when you pour olive oil, crush garlic, simmer lentils, chew your greens, and choose fruit over candy, you're not making a magic shield, but you are giving your body steadier signals, steadier sleep, and steadier defenses, which is how real protection usually builds one meal at a time.